Hello and welcome to the Get Stuck In podcast. We're back again this week. We're back with another fan from London, um, and a Spurs fan, and that's Harrison. Um, I mean, there might be a new biggest club in London, to be honest, at this rate, but but
Uh,
that's
uh,
the only place to start, really, to be honest. A
yeah,
2-1 loss to West Ham, who are flying almost two-thirds of the way into the season.
yeah. Well, obviously, first of all, thanks for having me on, boys. Good,
What?
good to hear. But whether I want to talk about Spurs West Ham, I'm not too sure. Um, yeah, just sort of was typical Spurs on the weekend, wasn't it, boys? Kind of just. I mean, I was fairly optimistic going into it. Um, I thought maybe Gareth Bale might have got a start, seeing as he played quite well in the Europa League game, but whereas after that, kind of just just went downhill after he didn't start. Just Jesse Lingard on a bit of form at the moment, isn't he? Uh,
That run is unbelievable. Like, I
mm,
know obviously he's shown it in the past, but to be honest, I'm just glad because I feel like that little band celebration is kind of
uh, oh,
overtaken
it,
dancing on the
it,
Emirates. So
I,
that's
I don't
that
know.
good.
I don't know what I was more fuming about: the fact that Davinson Sanchez need it in his path to put him through on goal, or they're in the corner, Jesse Lingard on the flute or whatever he was doing, and then Declan Rice on the drums. I was fuming. Um, yeah, no, just same thing over and over with Spurs at the moment. Just same old mistakes and stuff. I mean, I can't remember the last time that I watched the game and didn't see one of our own players sort of do something that couldn't have been avoided. Um, Definite reshape needed with that defence. Didn't obviously improve it in the window, and we're getting punished for it. So
So, do you think things would turn around if you had a big rehaul of the back?
yeah, I mean, it's difficult at the moment because obviously I'm seeing mistakes from players that in the past I've obviously had a lot of faith. You look at someone like Hugo Lloris. In the past, one of our sort of most reliable players. He's captain. He's won the World Cup. He's sort of meant to be a player who you can rely on. And just sort of creeping in, I'm seeing like, and quite a lot of Spurs fans are sort of saying the same, that we're seeing sort of mistakes that are a combination of both him and sort of the defenders. There doesn't seem to be that sort of connection between the two. Um, I mean, you sort of West Ham's first goal. Can't remember. Can you remember who it was that flashed it across the face? Was it um was it Kufal? Might have been Kufal. I can't remember who whipped.
Yeah, I think it was.
Can't remember who whipped the cross in. Um, but you saw it just kind of the usual runs across the front of the defence. Dyer doesn't deal with it because he's sort of useless at the moment. And then Lloris doesn't man his box and come out and claim it, and Antonio tucks it in. But yeah, I mean, I can't really say anything else other than that on the defensive side. It's just a bit of a shambles at the moment. And Davinson Sanchez, he's still dizzy from Gundogan. Sent him back to Colombia, Gate City.
That's
Um,
the thing. I remember when you had your sort of good run and people were sort of saying, are they in it for the title? I think it was the game you beat us. I think it was 2-0, and everyone was sort of saying it was that time where your defense looked really solid. And I
uh,
don't know if this was on the pod. I don't think we'd started back up then. But I kept saying to people, yeah, they're doing great right now, but why do people suddenly keep saying Dyer is like the answer? And it reminds me of Arsenal about it over the years so many times where you've had a defender have a good couple of weeks, like Mustafi, and you're like, yeah, this is it. And it's like people just forget, even David Luiz, they've got these moments in them that just come back so often. So I was quite surprised when people backed Dyer the way they
See,
did.
I was one.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I backed Dyer specifically, but when Spurs were on top earlier in the season, I did think they'd be in and around the conversation, and it was because defensively. I mean, even when you lost to Liverpool 2-1, um, and when you beat City, oh, I remember the game against City 2-0. I thought you were so good in the fact that you stayed on your. your players in the back line just stayed on their feet all game, didn't
Yeah.
dive in, nothing reckless, and that just seems to have gone out the window.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when Jose first came in, I don't know if you've seen. I remember there was that video of him kind of going around the first training session, and he was kind of talking to all the players, like getting to know them and being like, "Oh, like sort of, I want you to step it up. I've seen a lot of you. I like you." And I remember Dyer was like one of the first players that sort of being able to speak Portuguese. I think he kind of singled him out as someone who he could kind of communicate to quite sort of easily
Yeah.
and be on the same sort of wavelength with. And I remember when he first started Dyer and got him playing again, because obviously under Pochettino he wasn't getting sort of the starts he was wanting. He wasn't sure if he was a defensive midfielder or he was a centre half. So I think when Mourinho came in and sort of said to him, "Look, I want you to man the defence and be that centre back that I need," it kind of kicked him into gear a bit. He kind of turned into this player that we'd been looking for and someone who we could sort of rely on to man that back line. And then, like you said, when we played City, I think people were kind of just a bit caught off guard. Like it was the first time that the club had actually started playing this way of football that focused solely on stopping conceding goals. And then when you've got players like Kane and Son sort of up the top of the pitch who literally just stood up on the halfway line waiting for the ball to be cleared away. And just yeah, I think just even a team as good as City kind of just got caught out there. I think they weren't sort of expecting it. Um, but obviously now it's got to the point where I think Jose got criticised and the team got criticised so much for playing almost like an antisocial way of football. I think it got to the point where they kind of just gave up on it and thought, oh, we've got to actually try and score some goals now. Um, and I think when you've got players with the ability like Kane and Son and Dombele and stuff like that, playing defensive football, it's not pretty. And you get players like that think, I can't spend my whole time at the club relying on the ball being hoofed up to me to then go and do the rest. They want to be involved in a team that plays good looking football and attacks sort of with a bit of sort of creativity and a bit of
Yeah.
spark. So I think
With
that's kind of
is Alderweireld injured?
uh, it's difficult. I think obviously when Vertonghen left, he obviously left due to obviously getting on a bit and kind of being past his best. But when they broke up that partnership, it kind of seemed like what now, sort of where to go from here. And I think with Alderweireld, obviously, I don't know what it is, whether it's something going on sort of in training or something. I think he's had a couple injuries here and there, but I think whether it's something going on in training where he's not sort of quite performing when Jose's sort of watching and trying to sort out his back line, I don't know. Um, but the only time I've seen him sort of play is in sort of the FA Cup fixtures we've had, and they've been kind of against lesser opposition. So he's played quite well in them. Um, I, to be honest, I'm happy to give anyone a go at the back at the moment. I think because we have no idea what the shape is at the moment and who starts with who. All I'm saying at the moment is Davinson Sanchez and Eric Dyer cannot carry on as our sort of leading partnership at the moment because it's trouble waiting to happen really. But
I think also we have to give credit to West Ham. Like I feel like we should focus on them a little bit. It wasn't just Spurs, but
yeah,
they're flying, absolutely flying at the moment.
yeah, I'm a
I
big
sorry.
fan of Thomas Suchek. I think
Oh, massive fan of him.
I think.
I had West Ham going down this year.
Oh really?
Way off. I was way off this year. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what it is, but since Moyes has come back in, he's kind of he's got them flying. I think the one thing I was surprised about is I thought Ben Rama, I thought he would sort of have a bit more of an impact than he
Yeah,
has. I don't know
definitely.
if it's just struggling to find his feet or something, but I
I
don't know.
think I think on that one, I know they play different sides, but I think Bowen potentially was I think people definitely rated him, but I think he was almost better than people thought he was going to be and more influential. And obviously, obviously you can have great players on both sides, but a lot of teams tend to have like a side they focus on, especially when you've got Sufal on the right hand side, who's been a great addition at right back. I think arguably they've just focused on that side, and you've got Fornal sometimes plays on the left, so I guess Lingard can. So I think Ben Rama was in the plan to be almost their main man.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened yet, but I mean he's still young. He's a great player, and I think
I
he'll.
feel like he hasn't played that badly.
Yeah, I don't think he's been bad at all.
I think he's just the goals and assists haven't really come yet.
Yeah, he's just struggling to get time, isn't he? But I think one thing that I've been sort of quite impressed with West Ham, and how they've kind of performed is they're kind of very solid all around the park. They don't sort of rely on a certain, like with us, we rely on a certain couple of players to do the job. You look at people like Cresswell. No one sort of was looking at the start of the season and thinking, oh, Aaron Cresswell is going to be bagging assists left, right, and centre. You've got, I think it was Dawson, who they got back in, and they've just, although they don't have sort of individual players that are going to do anything ridiculously crazy, I think they've got consistent players that can perform to a good standard, like all across the board.
Well, yeah, I mean, to bring it back, like you mentioned, those kind of players who just kind of get the job done. I think even now, when his stock has definitely risen from when he left Arsenal, Fabianski still isn't viewed as a top goalkeeper in the league. And maybe he isn't, but he definitely is that just solid option. He's improved. I remember when he left Arsenal, everyone was a bit like, he was never. It's not like when Emi Martinez left this summer, and everyone knew he was top class, even though he was a backup. He was really sort of wobbly, and he's just such a solid option. Even Ogbonna, I mean, he was at his peak years ago at Juventus. Even when he first joined, people thought, you know, he might be past it. So yeah, I think they're just such a solid all-round team, and yeah, they've been threatening to push into Europe for a couple of years. Like every year, you think, oh wow, they might do it. This is probably the one year when no one thought they would.
I mean, watching the game, it was one they've got sort of a very solid core to the team. I think watching the game, I mean, there was times where I was looking at us switching the ball around the defence to the wing and going back again, thinking there's no space anywhere in the middle because they've got that Rice and Souček sort of combination going in the middle. And then out wide, I think Kufau was like 5 million quid or something.
Yeah.
What a buy he's been for them. And then obviously trying to get through Souček in the middle, he takes up so much room, doesn't he? He's massive bloke.
Do you think he makes team of the year?
Souček. Oh, I mean,
I'm trying to think of a better DM, to be honest.
I mean,
at the moment.
There's a lot of competition in the middle for that sort of team of the year.
I think he would suffer from that, and this is like sort of wrong, but it just is a factor of the big team bias. Like he's never gonna get, if he did the exact same stats this season and he played for Arsenal or whoever, he'd probably be a cert. But I think a lot of people say it would be. But going back as well, you did finally mention him, but none of us mentioned Declan Rice for so long. He's such a good talent, and it's difficult. You get these players now where he is pure quality. He can play CDM or centre back, and he now has, it's almost like the Kane decision where Tottenham were really on the up, and maybe not to the same degree, but West Ham are on the up now. He kind of is going to have in the next 2 years that decision, and maybe he'll be helped if West Ham have a poor season next year. It'll make it easier to say I'm going to leave. But I think he is at this sort of crunch time now in the next 2 years where he's got to decide whether to move on. And I think even if they do make Europe, I think if they make Europe, he'll have another year. But I think, say they finish 6th or 8th next year, I think he should make the jump because you see so many players miss that boat.
Yeah, I think kind of a lot of what we might see, sort of especially with upcoming sort of transfers, is teams are obviously going to have to cover for the losses that they've had with kind of revenue and ticket sales and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think you'll find with teams sort of like us and with West Ham, if someone came in for Declan Rice with sort of a good enough offer that they couldn't really turn down to help like cover the financial situation for a lot of Premier League teams at the moment, I think they'd find it tough to turn it down. And there's a lot of teams out there that would happily take someone like Declan Rice. So I think I
Yeah,
wouldn't be
definitely.
surprised if we did see it. But as you said, like quality player, and he has been for a while now. So I think it'd be
Yeah.
exciting to sort of see him in the England setup.
Yeah, I think he's certain to be. I think Southgate likes him. I know a lot of people say it's his
Yeah,
preferences, but I think he's definitely in that mold of a Southgate player.
yeah.
Um,
And how sort of he'll work. I think a lot of people are assuming that it will be sort of the team will be built around him and Jordan Henderson.
yeah,
So I think it'd be quite interesting to see sort of how he works next to someone like Henderson, and playing off sort of different sort of creative players that the England team are going to have going into the Euros.
would either of you be tempted to use him as a centre half for England just to get in an extra creative player that we have, maybe in a back three?
No, I'd rather not, just because I think he's so good in the middle of the park. I wouldn't want to lose that there.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to look at how we are at the moment. I think you've got people like John Stones, who's sort of out of nowhere turned into
Yeah,
this. How whether that's influenced by sort of the people around him. I think obviously Ruben Diaz has been good, but we'll get onto that. But I think kind of just like you said, Max, just keep him where he is. He's doing a job, not putting a foot wrong at the moment. So why change that?
I think his attacking play is underrated as well. I think some people still think of him as a DM, but he's scored a couple this year. He's created a couple, so I
Yeah,
agree. I'd use him there. Keep him
and
where he's most effective.
you saw he wanted to take the penalty that he scored the other week. So it obviously shows that he's aware of his sort of the one sort of thing he's missing is that sort of return on goals and
Yeah.
assists. So you can tell he wants to get involved in that area. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does sort of try and get that up and sort of better himself in that area.
Yeah.
So if we move on, I mean, all of our teams lost this weekend, so it depends which one we want to start with. Should we go with the Merseyside derby then? A
Yeah.
2-0 win for Everton, their first win at Anfield since 1999. Yeah, not the best result, but it was a great result for Everton. They're pushing for top four as well. I think they've got a game on Liverpool and on the same amount of points now. So
I mean, to be honest, like going into that, I remember I said to a mate of mine who's a Liverpool fan. I said to him, looking at that team sort of in the starting lineup, I'll be honest, I criticised Ancelotti. I said to him, like, is he what is he playing for here? He didn't really have much sort of attacking threats starting, did he? He had I think he had Allen, Calvert-Lewin on the bench, and I looked at the team and I thought, where are the goals going to come from there? I think he had James sort of just behind Richarlison and sort of kept them up top and sort of kept the shape sort of defensively solid at the back. And I looked at it and I thought, don't really see if this is the right way to attack the game with Liverpool being in such poor form. But I ate my words, didn't I? He got it pretty much spot on, didn't he?
what did you
Thing is
make
as
of the
well.
penalty incident?
Uh, I mean, if I was an Everton fan, I'm screaming pen. But at the same time, if I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm thinking there's not a lot that Trent can do there. But I mean, I think they looked at it, the VAR, they kind of gave it the first instinct that they gave was penalty. But I think whether or not they gave it, I think Everton thoroughly deserved to be two up. Um,
No, I don't think Liverpool would have scored anyway. I mean, I don't think it was a pen. I thought it was a ridiculous decision, but I don't think Liverpool would have got anything from the game anyway. So
yeah,
Everton were well worth their win. Thought Liverpool. I think we were good at the start of the second half, good at the start of the first half, but again we just fade after 10, 15 minutes. We can't break a team down after 10, 15 minutes in each half. We don't really have anything else at the moment.
yeah. I mean, one thing that I do sort of wanna touch on is I think in terms of how the whole current situation is with the Premier League and sort of with the no fans being in the stadium, I think for a team like Liverpool, I think if we're gonna sort of suggest any teams have been largely affected by the current sort of climate, I think Liverpool are up there, because for someone to sort of say that without the fans being in Anfield and without sort of the Cop End and the sort of usual buzz that's created by sort of the fans for home games, I sit there and sort of suggest that a lot of these games that Liverpool are struggling in, I can't help but imagine they would have gone differently if they would have had the pressure of all the fans sort of at Anfield having a go at them basically and telling them to pick it up. I don't know. I don't know if you sort of
Well, I
Yeah.
was going to mention something with we're going to touch on the Arsenal game in a bit, but obviously it was 1-0 Man City. They scored really quickly, but there was never a point where Arsenal started turning the screw and like even just lumping long balls in the last 5 minutes when you hold out that long. There was no momentum building at all for Arsenal, and I think that's just down to Man City's quality. And I know Arsenal's fan impact in the ground isn't anywhere near the level of Anfield.
Mm.
But I think a lot of teams will probably struggle with that thing where it's like, especially when you're down or you're drawing and you're the team that's expected to win in the last 20 minutes, I don't think you can underestimate the benefit of that. I remember under Wenger, we had so many games where we came back. And like you mentioned, Anfield, obviously you had the West Brom 2-2, where all the players went up to the crowd. Like, you can't
I mean,
get any bigger than that.
I can't help but think that a lot of sort of players at the moment, they may not sort of actually be doing it, but I look at some of the games and I think that they're playing it almost like a training match. They don't really
Yeah.
seem arsed, to be honest. They're kind of jogging around, sort of not really, the intensity isn't there. Like if Liverpool would have gone 1-0 down in the Merseyside derby and there were all those fans in Anfield, the amount of grief that you can imagine they'd have been getting, and the fans would have been obviously like trying to get them going. And I think, I might be wrong. It might sort of not be as big of a factor, but I can't help but think that players sometimes strive to a huge extent off of that boost that they get from sort of fan support. And I think partly what I blame the run of Liverpool on is in how their Anfield is no longer seen as this sort of absolute fortress, difficult place to go at the moment, is because it's empty. They're not getting the same sort of backing that they're used to.
Yeah, I can't, an empty stadium isn't going to help Liverpool at all. I mean, it is a very loud ground, and any time, like you say, we go down, you can't underestimate the sort of motivation you get when 60,000 people are screaming your name.
Yeah.
So compared to an empty doldrum of a stadium, it's a bit like, I mean, you can compare Anfield. It's a big stadium, but also to the sort of stadiums that sit close to the ground. So ones like Ellen Road,
Yeah.
Sellers Park, they're all the same. I think Leeds have done quite well to do so well without their fans. So I think it's affected a lot of teams, but I do understand the thing of it affecting Liverpool, to be honest.
What do you think of Thiago? I mean, we touched on him sort of specifically. I know there's sort of a lot of debate going on at the moment around him.
I think I'm 50-50 in terms of the reaction to how he's playing. On one side, I feel like he's too harshly criticised because I feel like people are expecting him to be the everything for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Because of the hype that came in. He's got to do everything for the team. He can't score or assist or do everything for the team. That's not what he did for Bayern. It's not what he did for Barcelona. It's not what he's going to do for Liverpool. But on the other hand, I think he's struggling playing at the six because I don't think he can cope with the height of the midfield. If you see the comparison to when he's playing to when Fabinho plays in there, it's another world in terms of the physicality. Fabinho is such a physical presence. He dominates that area of the field. Thiago's not like that. He's not a tradition. To be honest, the guy isn't a traditional DM anyway. He played there for Bayern because he was a good playmaker and he could split the lines.
I mean, one thing that I've sort of thought would be interesting to see, and you've not obviously had the chance to do it, is when Van Dijk obviously comes back in, shift Fabinho forward and have him and Henderson as the holding and have Thiago playing in front of them. I can't sort of help think that that would be a sort of more like much more successful formula. I think players like Fabinho and Henderson are too good to be sitting sweeping up at the back. And obviously when Henderson sort of pulled up with that injury, you just thought it's you can't make it up, can you? It's just ridiculously unfortunate at the moment. And
Well, I was saying this to one of my friends, like Jota's back in training this week, and I'm just telling you now, I bet he gets injured during the international break in a week. It'd just be typical, but oh God, it is a massive crisis now with Henderson out. Like, it's gonna have to be Kabak and maybe
yeah,
Davies.
I mean, what are you making of this Kabak fellow? I mean, all I've seen him do is get his name written in the book. Not much, not much more than that.
I mean, he played really well against Leipzig. Very, very good. Him and Curtis Jones were probably the two most solid players on the pitch that night, along with probably Salah. Salah played quite well. But I mean, he looks like good.
Yeah, he's young. He's young, isn't he? He's young.
Yeah, he's only 20.
Do you
So,
think that
I mean,
Leipzig game is down to familiarity and when he because obviously he
Possibly.
came from the Bundesliga, and then when he gets
Possibly,
that
yeah.
in the Prem, he'll sort of bring it up.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think it's hard because he was playing in such a poor team this season, poor Schalke team. So, I mean, there probably is. There will undoubtedly be a little bit of familiarity with that Leipzig team because he's obviously played them for a couple of years now. But I think he looks good. I mean, I thought he got absolutely like thrown under the bus by Alisson in his first game. I thought. I mean, you come in as a 20-year-old for your debut at Liverpool, and your goalkeeper goes and takes you out for a ball that you have covered. I understand Alisson does that, but he could see the whole field. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, I mean,
it's just,
I don't want to focus all on Liverpool. Like, Everton were good, and Everton are solid. Like, they're a good team this year. It's the best Everton team I've seen since I've started following football, and that's saying something because Everton have always just finished around 8th basically every year I follow football, and they actually could push for top 4 this year, which makes a change. Yeah.
Do you think they're better than the David Moyes Everton that did push for top 4? I think they finished 5th behind Arsenal. When they
that is close, to be fair.
They had Coleman and Baines like flying.
Cahill as well.
Fellaini at his best.
Cahill, Arteta.
To be fair, they were pretty similar to. I guess you could say they're similar to West Ham now. Obviously, they had Souček, Fellaini is quite an obvious comparison.
Arteta.
Mate, what a player, what a man.
Yeah. No, that's a good comparison. Actually, I forgot about how good that Everton team were. Yeah, I mean, I think they did make top 4 in 2005, possibly, but Liverpool won the Champions League, and that took them out of it.
Okay, yeah.
But
I mean, obviously, they've brought in players like Rodriguez. I mean, he's kind of brought that sort of bit of experience and a bit of flair that they've kind of been missing. And obviously, his through ball to Richarlison, you couldn't really have put it any better than he did. Just the only thing with him is sort of fitness wise, you do see him kind of drop off a bit towards the end of the game. But I think as soon as they can get Allen back in that midfield, so obviously with Davies and Gomez, they did a pretty good job in there. But you just think someone like Allen just makes such a difference coming in there and just breaking up the play that I think they'll be happy to have him.
They're going to be even harder to break down now. Allen's back because he was arguably their best player when he was playing earlier in the season.
Yeah,
he's been out for so long, and they bring him back in the side now, and that team's going to have so much more freedom to create.
I mean, you look at their next 2. I think they've got Southampton at home and West Brom away. They'll be looking at that, thinking
6 points, hopefully.
Opportunity to get 6 points there. Calvert-Lewin, I thought he looked alright when he came back on. Obviously difficult for him with the injury setbacks, but he won the penalty, didn't he? Whether or not you thought it was a penalty, but he looks sort of hungry again. So I think.
Do you think they have it in them? Obviously with Ancelotti, but just as a club, do you think they can push on and obviously not this season, next season challenge for the title? Or do you think it is top 4 would sort of be their limit?
I don't know. There's something about them that I think they're still missing. Whether or not it's sort of that one sort of creative spark or special player that they have, but you look at sort of the other teams like City and sort of United, they've got like sort of De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandez sort of thing. They've got those special players that can kind of bring the whole team together. And I still think Everton are kind of missing a couple sort of class players. They're obviously still relying on people like Seamus Coleman, who's been about for how long, and obviously Pickford's been a bit sort of unreliable for them this season. So I think if they were to kind of go out and improve those sort of couple areas that they kind of lack a bit, then there's no reason why with a manager like Ancelotti that they can't sort of start pushing on. But I think, like you said, Max, they've kind of been consistent. Like they've been a problem consistently. Like Everton's never been an easy game. Like you've never looked at a fixture against Everton and thought, oh yeah, we'll take 3 points there. So I think their sort of next step is taking themselves from a difficult team to play to a team that can challenge and sort of cement themselves in that top four.
I think they could do with more winners in the squad, to be honest. I mean, they've got a winning coach, but apart from that, James is the only guy I can think of who's consistently won throughout his career. Real, basically, and briefly at Bayern. I mean, Alex Iwobi won the FA Cup, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that and you think they obviously spent, what was it, like 30 million on him, and don't get me wrong, he's kind of
a good player, but he's not.
Right,
he's not.
You just think, you look at that and think they definitely personally think they could have invested that money a bit better.
Well, it's not even just him. They spent, I think it was 20 on Theo Walcott the year before, and I think that's the difference with before they were spending the same amount of money they spent this year, except Ancelotti came in and said, like, it was almost, I'm sure they went for higher level tier players than them, but they almost couldn't attract them. Whereas now, you don't even need Champions League football. You just need to say, we've got Ancelotti. And that is such a draw for something like James wouldn't have gone there if they had whoever else in charge. But I think they could get top four this year because the league is so volatile and so many teams are dropping. But I think if we assume next year that Liverpool get back on it, and all these other teams get back on it, I can't see them solidifying, and I'm not really sure why. I don't really see Ancelotti staying for sort of a crazy amount of time. So I think for them, getting top four this season should be an essential, and then obviously next year see how you're doing it, but then also just try and win an FA Cup because, like you say, with that winner's mentality, you don't know what that can do to your squad. It can just transform everything.
I think as well, you've got people like James. Obviously, he's on a timer, isn't he, with his career? He's gonna get to the point where he's gonna run out of time, and so you look at that midfield that they started with. You take him out of there, you're not gonna have Gomez and Davies sort of playing world class through balls and switching the play like James does. So I think now, like you said, is their opportunity to take advantage of like the quality they have. I mean, people overlook players like Richarlison. I mean, that finish on the weekend was pretty good. I mean, if you'd expect that from someone like Kane, like sort of Aguero sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, like as you said, if they can kick on and kind of have they got a couple games in hand, or have they got a game in hand? I think is it the one game in hand?
One maybe.
Yeah, so if they can take advantage of that, they've got 2 winnable fixtures coming up. If they can sort of take advantage of that, there's no reason why they can't sort of be in that little mixer of getting a European spot. So.
But yeah, should we? I mean, we were going to cover the Arsenal Man City game, but we spent a bit of time on that. So I think if we just sum up the Arsenal game, as Man City are pretty good at football.
Yeah,
Arsenal are not good at football. We mentioned, didn't we, earlier on, like not being able to turn the screw. I think Man City are too good. But if we jump on then, if we go on to the fan questions, and then later on we'll talk about the Champions League and do some more predictions and talk about our predictions last week, which in short did not go too well. But yeah, have you got your answers ready for these? Did Max?
Yeah, well, so obviously, in terms of my first memory, if that's where to start, I think one of my sort of favourite things to do when I was younger was I'd come home from training, or I'd wake up on the day after the games. And do you remember they used to have the teletext on the TV?
Yeah.
And it was obviously nowadays you can check the results and the scores of matches at a click of a button on an app or on Twitter or something. But I remember I used to spend so long bringing up the teletext and scrolling through and trying to find like the results of the matches. And I remember I started playing fantasy football when I was quite young, and so I've kind of always had an interest in teams and results and players that aren't necessarily just associated with Spurs.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a memory of sitting when I was younger, flicking through the teletext and having it come up with the results and scores. I think it was quite sort of a good or authentic of memory. But
Yeah, I feel like my equivalent of that would be, I think I was just sort of after teletext, but I remember I used to always just have match of the day recorded and I'd
yeah,
watch it the next morning at like 9, 10 o'clock, whatever. Especially when I had like had a game at like 11, I
yeah.
would just watch match of the day before. I'd always be like, right, yeah, I'm just
It's
gonna
like
play
you
like whoever.
watch some world class players and then you translate that on the Sunday league
Mate,
pitch.
honestly, I just watched 2013 Yaya Toure and I was like, right, let's go out, just
Like
quickly perform like that, and then we'll go out.
you're a bit of a Yaya Toure.
Mate, it was my Twitter bio for about 5 years,
Oh,
2013, 14 Yaya
no,
Toure. On
decent.
a real though, just little tangent. That season is insane. I think at some point we've got to do a like debate or something on like the best one. Not that he was a one-off, but individual seasons that were just ridiculous. But yeah. Do you think you would have a first Tottenham memory specifically if you could think of one?
Well, necessarily sort of one of my first and favorite ones was in 2009. I won the club used to do like a draw, like a fan draw, and you could go on and be a mascot for one of the games. And I remember I drew, ironically, it was West Ham at home, and I think I was 10, like just 10 at the time,
Yeah.
and got the opportunity to sort of go and be a mascot for the game. And I remember you were meant to write in and tell them about like your favorite player, and they'll sort of try and like organize
Yeah.
it so that you could sort of meet your favorite player or like walk out on the pitch with your favorite player.
Yeah.
And I remember I was stood in the tunnel, waiting to kind of see all the players and stuff like that. I remember Jermaine Genius sort of came over to me, and I was sort of stood in the tunnel having a chat to Jermaine Genius. And don't get me wrong, like he's a good bloke, but we had some sort of world class players in that lineup. We had like Bale, we had sort of couple good players in there, and I was thinking, don't tell me I'm holding Jermaine Genius's hand out onto the pitch when we've got some people like Robbie Keane, like Ledley King on who were playing. And then after I sort of had a chat with him, all the players shifted forward, and my favourite player at the time was Aaron Lennon, and he was like, "Yeah, come on, then, mate, like you're coming out with me." So I was 10-year-old, stood in the tunnel there, over the moon. But obviously, when you're that young, the kind of whole thing's just so overwhelming. I struggled to take it in, but yeah, we got I think we won 1-0 that day, and it was a Roman Pavlyuchenko off the bench finish. So I think that was obviously like one of my favorite
Yeah,
memories.
I was gonna say, Max, you'd like this one. I cannot remember for the life of me which friend it is, but I'm from Bristol. I've sort of talked about it a few times. And he was a mascot at Bristol City friendly against Ajax.
Yeah,
He was with Luis Suarez.
really,
Wow.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one.
that's a good little.
My
Good
my
little
one, it's obviously not a mascot, but I went to under 21 England, saw Zaha play.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's my little claim to
one. But
fame.
yeah, I mean, it was quite funny. I remember I was in the you have like a little changing room where you get your kit on before you go and like stand in the tunnel. And I remember I was watching the football that was on like that the morning before the afternoon game. And I can't remember who it was against, but I just remember Fernando Torres scoring an absolute screamer on the telly. And I was proper like that proper gassed me up. I was well excited about that. So I was thinking, I better see some good goals today. And it just turned out to be a Pavlyuchenko off the bench winner. So, but don't get me wrong, like being at the old White Hart Lane, it was cracking stadium. Sometimes I think it would be nice to just sort of relive that stadium one more time. I think a lot of the fans do miss it sometimes. But yeah, sort of a memory that I won't forget, and was just the luck of the draw, wasn't it? So yeah, no, that was good. That was a good little memory. That.
So if we move on, we've talked about our own. We've talked about with other guests. Because I remember Sam's was Messi chipping Neuer. Mine was Ajax versus Real.
Oh,
Football fan.
oh wait, did you not lag for then? You
Yeah,
completely lagged on mine.
it's right. I think I got a brief of what you
Oh,
asked.
yeah.
So if you're asking about sort of my favourite memory outside of Spurs, I did have a little think about it this morning. It's obviously a difficult one, but I'm gonna go with the Aguero goal versus QPR to win the title. I think a lot of fans will sort of accept the fact that that was a pretty special moment. And I think I remember I had both the Sky Sports News, like the Gillette special, and I think I had the United game on at the same time. And I remember them saying, like, "Oh, it's all over at United. So they think they've won it." And I turned that game off and I put the Gillette special on. And I think when I turned the special on, it was Edin Dzeko, I think, had just scored.
Yeah.
And I can't say I remember anticipating that it would happen, but I remember thinking, if they turn this around, this would be sick. I think a lot of fans thinking this would be class. And then I think Paul Merson was covering the game that day, and you just remember the iconic sort of commentary of the Balotelli Aguero sort of thing, and I just couldn't help but think, what a wicked moment, just for not just for Man City fans, but just in general. You think like that sort of moment just kind of made up sort of what football is to a lot of people. It's nice seeing United not win the trophy. I was
Yeah.
happy for City to win it that year, but yeah, I'd go with that. That was definitely one of my favourite sort of recent memories. But
You know, a lot of people give Man City, I guess, as a club, but also fans, they give them a lot of stick, and it's kind of just the main rebuttal about them winning everything is that it's all money and it's all kind of plastic, and there's no history. Gets thrown around quite a lot. Like, when does it start becoming history? Like, that moment is iconic. So many football fans know that's like more than so many other teams, like big moments.
yeah,
Like, how long do you think it would be, assuming they kept it up? When does every, because at some point everyone had a money injection, whatever it is. I think there's always that story about Arsenal like
yeah.
buying their way into the league and I think they actually got Tottenham relegated when they came into the league. So how long do you reckon it would take for Man City to
I mean,
not be seen in that way?
to be honest with you, like I've kind of for the last couple seasons, I've looked at it and I've gone, a lot of the time I'd much rather someone like City win the title than Liverpool or
Yeah,
Chelsea
definitely.
or something like that. I think I don't sort of hold any grudges against City for the injection of money that they had, because like you said, it's constantly happening. Like teams get injected with financial support all the time. So for me personally, I can't remember the last season that I looked at City and went, oh, I don't like the way they've gone about that, because it's the game at the moment. So to be honest with you, I think a lot of people would agree that I no longer look at City and think, oh, they're only up there because of the financial position they're in. I think they're up there because for years they've been probably technically the best team in the league, while Liverpool last year that the Premier League has seen for a while. So I think it's already happening that people are looking at them as more than just a team that got lucky financial support, and that they're actually deserved, consistent contenders every year.
Mm.
Um,
I mean,
but
Max, you've had the most kind of like rivalry with them, haven't you, as a Liverpool fan? Probably other than maybe Man U in the early years. Like, how do you see them compared to your rivalry with Man United and all the other top teams?
I understand City are a rival in name, but they're nothing compared to Man United in terms of the rivalry with Liverpool. There is nothing. I care about it obviously as a Liverpool fan, but I don't care as much as if United won it. Doesn't mean as much to me if City
Yeah.
win it. Does mean something, but not as much as if United win it. As for the thing of when history becomes history for Man City, I think it will happen when the next generation below us becomes our age and starts following football to a consistent basis, because they're not going to have seen they don't have this. We lived through the period where Man City weren't that good. They were a mid-table club or in the
Well,
Championship.
it's like Harrison literally. Then you just kind of mentioned Chelsea, like Chelsea, Man United. Chelsea got money like just sort of when we were young, and now we kind of don't see Chelsea in that light. So that kind of goes that way as well, Max.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, completely. I mean, again, we just missed out on sort of Chelsea before the money.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people do still say about Chelsea, like especially like you see the last summer they just had spending 220 million. They've still got the ability to do it, but it fades over time. Everything fades over time. People forget. They choose to forget.
I think
So
because it was just such like a sudden injection. I remember well them signing someone like Robinho and people like Joe and stuff like that. And I think because they went from that sudden sort of player status of average to decent players to bringing in world class sort of talent. I think that was the difference that a lot of people weren't happy about. You saw other teams bring in good players to aid already good players. That was kind of the difference in the money injection.
I think Chelsea, a lot of Chelsea fans at least would say they were already a sort of just below / top 4 team anyway, and then they just got that boost. But also, I think Man City were just like, they sort of say like, great money really helps, but it doesn't guarantee anything. Chelsea haven't seen. It's difficult with Chelsea because they've won the league a lot, obviously, but they still have this cycle where they win it and then they're awful, and then they win it, and they just go through this repeated like 3-4 year cycle. Whereas Man City seem to have got it down a little bit more consistent. Maybe it's because they just have more. But I was going to say, I wonder if Man City won't be viewed. I think you are right. It could be like the next generation, but I wonder if Man City have to get near the Liverpool, Man United, 19, is it 19 and 20 leagues? Like, I wonder if they have to get there before it's like,
yeah, they will definitely have to get near there, because they got to overtake Arsenal, to be honest.
Yeah.
To even how many are they on now? If they won this
Arsenal have 13.
Arsenal have 13.
How Man City must be on about 5 or 6.
Yeah, Everton have got 9. I know that.
Yeah.
So they're the top 4, but they need to get in and around that sort of mix, because otherwise it does still look like you've just suddenly jumped up over a couple of years. You need to have an extended period of dominance, which they are doing.
I wonder if when they if they overtake Arsenal, that will be when it's like, okay.
Yeah, I think that will trigger it. Yeah.
Champions League
Champions League would definitely help,
because I think as well the Champions League that wins you so many arguments against Arsenal, but I don't know. But yeah, if we move on from that to the last question, and this is the question everyone struggles with. I don't know if you will, Harrison. Who would you? Who's one player you wish Tottenham could sign from any time?
I mean, this is obviously pains me because I don't like Chelsea, but Eden Hazard is probably the player that I've gone for, just in terms of sheer sort of ability, and a player that whenever we play Chelsea, like we play Chelsea now, and I didn't like or don't look at your team now and think there's one player in there who's going to cause serious damage, and that if we don't stop them playing, they can win the game on their own. Or when you used to have someone like Eden Hazard playing, any time that you were struggling a game, all it took was him to get the ball and do something special, and he could single-handedly win the match for you. I think if you remember, I think it was his goal versus Arsenal in 2017. I think it's Coquelin
he
turned inside out.
Coquelin,
He walks through the rest of the defence and just kind of prods it into the ground over the keeper. And you just think, some players that we've been lucky to see in the league make playing football look effortless. I think he was up there, and I think if someone like him would have been playing for us at the time, we had players like Modric, like Van der Vaart sort of thing. Someone like him in there as well, we would have. Chances are we could have gone on to win something and do a lot better than just the League Cup. But yeah, quality player, and I think to see him kind of go downhill like he has since going to Madrid, I think has obviously been difficult. But yeah, especially when he was in the Prem, I think quality player, and sort of took for granted how good he was.
Were you linked heavily with him before he went to Chelsea?
Yeah, I think was it where was he before? Was it Lille?
Lille, yeah.
Or Chelsea, yeah. But obviously Spurs get linked to every player under the sun when they go to someone else. The amount of papers that come out with Spurs missed out on this person and Spurs missed out on that. There were obviously a few rumours going around that we were interested in him, but you can never say these rumours are legit until a player suddenly becomes world class and you've missed out on him.
Interesting you say that. What about Bruno Fernandez? Because you were actually linked, and the Sporting President did come out and make comments.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, mate, I could give you a whole bible of players that could have come to us and been quality. But obviously, talented player, quality for United. But I can't help but think that part of the reason he's doing so well at United is because they rely on him so much. I think obviously he slots into our team hands down, like he'd work well. But when with a team like us, we've got players like Kane and Son who are equally as capable as he is. And I think a lot of the reason that he's performed so well for United is that he's at the centre of everything. And I think if he wasn't at the centre of everything playing for us, I think he definitely would have done well, but I can't help but think he would have maybe found it a bit more difficult to settle in than he has at United. But don't get me wrong, world class. I mean, would have been ideal getting him, but just didn't in the end.
I was just quickly. I thought you were going to say this. I don't know if you guys will know this because to me it's common knowledge. But obviously I'm in the Arsenal circle. But we were linked with Hazard, and I think Tottenham heavily were. But then Chelsea got him, and we got Jovino. So at least you didn't do that. Yeah. That's just about. That's got to be the worst downgrade you could ever go for.
Yeah. I mean, I think Chelsea got off a bit better than you did there. But yeah, quality player, but I don't think Jovino is the one for you.
Mate, as soon as he's like, I'm not being funny, no matter how good a player is, you see the image, you see the forehead, surely you just think, let's give this one a miss. Like, this isn't going to go well. Even if he's incredible, this is going to become a meme. Let's not go near it.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so that's my answer, boys. Eden Hazard.
So if we move on, we'll do the predictions now. We'll have a little chat about the upcoming Champions League games and have a little reflection on the last week's games. I think we were wrong about, I think most people were wrong on the polls. I think the polls went the complete opposite direction to how they actually turned out. Have you got the poll up, Sam?
Yeah, I've got all of them. So we had Sevilla to win, 62%.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Juventus to win, 90%.
I voted for Porto. I'd just like to say I was the sole vote for Porto.
Barcelona to win, 66. And Leipzig to win, 62. Leipzig surprised me. I feel like the rest kind of go with the favourite, so it makes sense. But Leipzig, to be fair, I went Leipzig, so I probably criticise that.
Not that surprising then. Yeah, it was a mixed bag, wasn't it? I thought they were great. It lived up to what I've been waiting for, to be honest.
It looks so much better. Like when you're watching it, it literally looks better than other football.
Yeah,
you can't explain it.
True.
It's just elite. It's so good.
Elite football. It's the top. It's the best level football in the world in any competition. There's no doubt.
The quality is insane. I think the only thing that's more enjoyable is the World Cup.
Yeah,
it's just like fun. But the football,
World Cup is
normally the football's sometimes the Football World Cups can be abysmal, but watching it is just incredible. But yeah, the Champions League does live up to the name, definitely.
Yeah. So, what game did you want to touch on to begin with?
Is this the old games or?
Yeah.
I mean, the main shock for me, I think Liverpool, credit to them, it was a great result. It was kind of expected, I think, for most people other than us. But
No, I didn't expect it. I didn't think.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it came out of nowhere in their form, but credit to them, they got it done. I think they could. I think PSG was a crazy one, and there was this kind of, I guess actually, if we put Dortmund and PSG together, what do you guys make of this supposed changing of the guard of Mbappe and Haaland? Do you think from now on it's them up, Messi, Ronaldo down, or do you think this is a false dawn?
I don't know. I think for me personally, I think Haaland's still got a little bit of a way to go before he kind of puts himself as like the same bracket as Mbappe, sort of Ronaldo, Messi sort of thing. I think he's doing well, and obviously he's scoring goals in the Champions League. But I think for me personally, he's kind of almost came out of nowhere, didn't he? And he's kind of been firing. So I think by all means, if he keeps up the consistency, then there's no reason why he can't be in there. But I think he's still got a bit of a way to go before he sort of gets to the heights of sort of Mbappe. But by all means, like he said, bit of competition wouldn't be a bad thing because two world class players, you want to see them do well. Especially for Pochettino's PSG, I'd happily like Mbappe to keep scoring goals. But
I think it is these two now. I think we knew Mbappe would be that guy after we didn't. Haaland has only been around for about a year or two now, so he's only just emerged. I'm in love with Haaland, honestly. Like that guy. Did you see the goal he scored at the weekend?
Yeah,
Little hook volley.
such a good finish.
Oh, he is. Huh?
Sorry, I was just going to say the only thing I've sort of. What have you boys sort of obviously with Jadon Sancho? I know he's sort of worked off Haaland quite well in the past, but especially with England call up coming along and sort of getting the squad together, how are you sort of thinking that he's doing at the moment? He seems sort of like on and off, doesn't he?
I think the first half of the season he didn't do very well because I don't think he got his first goal until the new year. So I think in the last month or two he's picked it up massively. I don't watch a lot of Bundesliga, but I do watch some of the highlights. It just seems like the second half of the season he has kicked on now. I mean, Dortmund aren't doing very well in general, but I think they're still sat outside the Champions League places at the moment, despite Haaland, which is pretty incredible. But I think he's not doing as well as last year, but I mean, he's only 21, isn't he? So it's peaks and troughs in a career. It happens. So yeah.
I think it's quite a different role at Dortmund, especially if you compare it to what he's going to have at England. And I think it's one of the reasons I think personally I wouldn't start him at the Euros. I think it's a very, very different role. He's almost like borderline like he's like the second main goal threat, I think, for Dortmund behind Haaland. And I just think with England, the way we play the three centre backs, I think you're probably going to have most of your creative players in the middle, and I think players like Sterling, Rashford, they have such a goal threat advantage at the moment on Sancho, and obviously he's got time to improve that in his career. And obviously you've got like Saka, who I'm in love with, but I just think there's a lot of players that offer you goals. Like, not that I think he'll go even someone like Greenwood. I just think in World Cups and in tournament football, it's all about results, and in turn, it's all about goals. So I think for me, Sancho may struggle to start at the Euros. The Euros. Obviously, he can be an incredible impact, and he could still start. But yeah, if we go back to Haaland and Mbappe, I think I saw a tweet that said, because obviously you get these. I think it was BT you were tweeting about like Mbappe's the new Messi and Haaland's the new Ronaldo, and people were saying, well, no, because they're both physical. They're both very physical, very quick, very strong. I think both of them resemble much closer to Ronaldo. And I saw this tweet basically saying this just emphasizes the brilliance of Messi, but just the uniqueness of him, I guess. Do you think there's going to be another Messi style player? Or do you think, I mean, people talk about Liverpool, it's very physicality driven. Your style of play is very energy driven. Do you think that's the future of football?
I think there's always room for a Messi type player, but I don't think they have to be on the level of Messi. That's the issue, or Maradona. We've only seen a couple of top players, and I mean, two of them come from Argentina. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, football is an extremely physical game. It goes without saying. So, it helps to be a physical player. It's not saying Messi isn't physical. He is. He's just not as much of a presence physically. He is an extremely physical player.
I think if you look at the Barca team at the moment, you kind of get a hint that they're trying to find it in a player that's similar to him. Like you look at their starting lineup, players that they play, people like him, people like Fati. Yeah. You think they're kind of trying too hard to find someone that they can put in the like path of Messi and think, right, you're gonna do the next thing. But in answer to your question, you kind of can't see anyone at the moment who's specifically the next one to sort of play like him and follow him on. So obviously that's, I guess, kind of credit to him.
I mean, I feel like in terms of, if you look at the youngsters in the world right now, because the other question I was going to ask is, do you think it's sort of, it is, whether you think Haaland's on the same level, do you think Mbappe and Haaland are going to kind of have this era of dominance of just two players, or do you think it'll be wider? And within that, not that I'm putting him in that bracket, I was listening to something about Saka and how basically physically fit he is and how he hasn't had injuries yet. And I feel like the only youngster who comes maybe into that Messi bracket in terms of not being built on that would probably be Foden. But again, I still think he relies a little bit on his physicality. I think his next step is to almost bulk up and become.
Foden's a very, very good shout. He's very, like, he's not similar to Messi, but technically he's one of the best youngsters. I think that, like, he plays more like Messi to me than most youngsters out there, most young talents.
I think a lot of what it will depend on is their own sort of path. If you look at the way Messi and Ronaldo have done, they've both gone the different routes of dominating in one, being in for one team for a consistent period of time, and the other going and playing in a number of different leagues and still maintaining that sort of top level. So I think where we'll see these players emerge is the ones who stay with their current club and go on to be one of like the greatest players for that club, or the ones that you see drop out and disappear because they struggle to play in a different league or in a different country.
One thing I wanted to ask, and this is no disrespect to Lewandowski, but obviously there's been comparisons between Haaland and Lewandowski. Do you think he will end up being a better player than him? Because personally, I do, and that is hard to say, because Lewandowski, for me, is the best striker of the 2010s. But I think he has everything Lewandowski has, plus the pace.
Put Suarez over him?
Huh?
Would you not put Suarez over Lewandowski?
No, Lewandowski.
Really?
Yeah, he's the only guy who's out of the two. He's the only one who came close to winning the Ballon d'Or.
Would you not put Ronaldo over him? Do you see him as do you see Ronaldo as not an out striker?
No, I don't. I don't tend to put. I mean, he played left wing for a large portion. Yeah. That's probably why. Obviously, Ronaldo. If we cast Ronaldo as striker, I'd take Ronaldo. But I mean, I just think he has everything plus the pace. He's such a pacey player for a guy so tall. I just wonder what you think of that.
The only thing with me is I'm kind of a bit of a sucker for a player who has gone different places and continued to be that world-class talent. I think you look at someone like Lewandowski, can't help but want him to have gone and played somewhere else, or gone and tried it in even like the Premier League or the Serie A or something like that. Just to kind of, obviously you can't take away from these players that they're world-class, but I think what separates a lot of players from being just sort of capable and have the skill and the ability is their sort of how they can translate that into a different league and can keep that up. Which I think obviously you look at someone like Ronaldo, he's gone and done that across the world. So I think you have to keep an eye on these players and see sort of what route they're going to take and how they continue their career. But
Well,
certainly,
I think it's like you talk about going to different league. You've got like Havertz, Werner. Obviously, like they're not finished. They've still got time to turn around, but they haven't been able to pass open. That's not just a dig at them. So many people haven't. And I think with Haaland, I love him. I think he's quality, but it's not even just the league he's in. Dortmund, a lot of players have looked brilliant at Dortmund down the years, and then they can't quite like Batshuayi went there and looked incredible. And I think with him, it's almost like his game is so brilliant and it's all about pace and things like that. But just the physical nature of it, if you come to the Prem and you play for a certain team, you're probably not going to have space to run into or like a lot of space to move around. And it's a lot about like technicality. Like you look at the Man City team, it's all about like technicality in the small spaces and especially in the attacking third. So I think you're right in saying that going to a different league, especially the Prem gets talked about a lot. It's like Lewandowski thrived at Dortmund. Fair enough, you can go to Bayern, but you just think at least go to Real Madrid. Like at least show you can do it. I think that's one of the things of not at all putting him in that bracket. But Aubameyang, I was worried when we got him. I didn't think he would be able to translate that. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, and he surprised me with how well he adapted. So I think, yeah, go into a different league, particularly the Prem, can be like it can almost make a player.
Yeah, and I think obviously we're no means saying that these players that have gone somewhere else and struggled, we're by no means saying that they are not good players and they've lost their talent. But a lot of what translates a good player in the modern game is return, is your contributions. So I think, like you said, with players like Havertz and Werner, they've not suddenly left their ability behind and gone somewhere else and struggled. It's purely just a base of if they went back to Germany, you wouldn't be surprised if they suddenly started firing again. So I think it's just so many other factors that take into how a player can be considered a world class player at the heights of Messi and Ronaldo. I think it's just time will tell when we see sort of players transition into that one club player who becomes world class by just being consistent, or that player that can go anywhere they want and do that. So, but like you said, I think Aubameyang is a good example. I think he's been sort of one of the Prem's best players, and he was sort of good at Dortmund. So it's just one example.
Yeah, you know, you sort of mentioned Foden as well. I do think with him, as much as I think he could go somewhere else and succeed, like clearly he could, Man City just seemed made for him, especially under Pep. Like we talked about Messi staying there because it was based on him, and you're maybe Foden, maybe that could be a move. It would be Barcelona, especially if they did get Pep back. But I do think for him, as much as I think he could go anywhere and be brilliant, Man City seem built for him and his style right now. So I think it's crazy because we talk about Mbappe, Haaland, we talk about all these other players. You don't know, like 2 years ago, no one knew who Haaland was. In a year's time, we could be talking about some kid who came through from West Brom,
Just
got 15 goals, and now he plays for whoever. So it's crazy. And then you still got like you got Fati at Barcelona you mentioned. I think isn't it Dortmund have another? Have you heard about the Dortmund striker? Can't remember what his name is
16-year-old.
now. Yeah. But he
Yeah.
scored on his debut, and like they probably think, oh, if we lose Haaland, it'll be awful, but we'll get loads of money, and then we've got another one right there anyway. So.
I mean, I'm quite excited about. Have you seen Dane Scarlett for Spurs?
No,
I think he's
I think I heard about him, but I haven't actually seen him play
yeah,
yet.
he's in our Europa squad, and he makes the bench for the Prem a couple of times. I think he's 17, 16, 17. And he's sort of scored in every sort of league he's been in. So obviously he's played in the under 18s, the under 23s, the Premier League. Is that like the Premier League 2? I think they call that now. He's banging in goals. So I think like you said, it'd be quite interesting to see sort of for our generation, we grew up with such a rich sort of volume of players. It will be interesting to see who the ones that come through are for the next generation and who they consider as like the Gerrards, the Lampards, the Rooneys that we saw. So I think growing up, I think that would be sort of the thing that we'll look out for and think, oh, that's sort of make all these comparisons to players that we thought who were world class.
Max, do you think? Because obviously we've touched on there with the Tottenham player, and I always go on about Saka and Smith Rowe, whoever. Who do you think the Liverpool player to come through is? Would you put it as Jones?
100%. I think he's underrated, to be honest, as a youngster. Just because he doesn't get any mention ever. And he's so good technically on the ball. His dribbling ability is second to none in the league, and I'm not even joking. He's been one of our best players this season. I'd list Salah, Fabinho, Robertson, and Curtis as our top 4 players this season by some distance. Fantastic first half of the season. He didn't seem to play for about a month for some reason, and notably that's when we started playing badly. So I love Curtis Jones, honestly. Best player in a long time to come out.
The only problem for him, I think, is that where we touched on before about that 3 of Thiago, Fabinho, Henderson coming back. The issue with him is because with someone like Phil Foden, for example, he can play in the middle, he can play wide, Pep can play him, he's even played him in the false 9 before. With someone like Jones, you look at that Liverpool team, and because the current climate of your team at the moment, you can't help but think he's improving and playing because of the lack of options. How do you think sort of that's going to develop once he stops getting game time, because he naturally will get moved out of do you think it will be kind of cup games that he'll get sort of playing time? Or
the thing is, you say that, but he's played in some of our biggest games this season over different players. I know we had Fabinho and Henderson sometimes out, so obviously that would have filled in the position, but he played against Spurs, was one of probably our best player on the pitch that night in the first game. Did he play against you at yours? I can't remember. I don't think he did, actually.
Not sure.
He played in virtually all of our Champions League matches, all big matches. He's played in. Klopp seems to trust him in the big games.
The trust is there, isn't it? So
to be honest, I want to put this to you two. Like, I'm not surprised that his name hasn't been in the conversation, just because the midfield depth is so deep in the England squad. But do you think it's slightly surprising there's been no mention whatsoever of his name?
Is this for
Curtis?
Just in general, as like future sort of?
No, for the Euros.
Oh, for the Euros. I mean,
I think it's the depth that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, for the first time in a while, we can look at that England sort of list and think we've actually got options. We're not relying on sort of one sort of main lineup. But I think if you compare him to the likes of like Rice, you look at people like James Maddison, perhaps not getting a spot because he's in such competition with other players. I think he'll be in the mix purely because he's playing for a top flight team and getting sort of consistent games. But whether or not I can confidently see Southgate picking him straight away, I think maybe from a Liverpool perspective, you might sort of think higher of him. But for me personally, I don't think he has sort of the edge over some of the other players in the squad. But whether or not that's based on us needing some experience in there and based on players who are returning goals and assists, which is what sort of we're after. But saying that, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years' time he does sort of become a Declan Rice figure and someone who we do kind of rely on to be the core of the team.
I mean, I think, let alone him, I think there's going to be a lot of young players in this England team, and it's going to be such an inexperienced team on the whole that I think you're going to need a couple of older figures in there. And I think one thing a lot of people kind of forget is, and people have criticised Pep for this, you don't have to rush these young players. Like, so many young players get rushed and then don't. And I almost think you could see it that certain players who do go to the Euros this year, maybe it is too soon. And Curtis Jones, if he doesn't, he stays at home and then he goes to the next 4 tournaments. Like, you don't know. And just in terms of his general stock, I think he's hardly done by the fact that he's in the Champions team. And I know you're not playing like the Champions this season because of a lot of reasons. I think you get a lot of people going like, oh, he plays for Liverpool, so it's like easy to be good. And clearly that isn't true. And I think he's a great player, but you also look at that and say you've got players like Saka, who is literally Arsenal's best player. He's the focus of it, like you said with Bruno Fernandez about the system. And I just think he is a brilliant cog in that team, but everyone else sees him as a cog in the team, even though I don't necessarily think that's true. I think Klopp has said it, like you said, he's got the trust of Klopp, and if you've got the trust of Klopp, that should be enough for anyone else. But
I think it was Alex Scott who was sort of talking about it, and she was saying that she reckons a lot of what some of the picks will be based on is sort of like diversity and ability to kind of play multiple positions. Like you look at people like Saka, Foden, maybe
Rice.
Grealish, Rice. Yeah, we'll take players who are able to sort of change where they play and sort of cover a lot of different positions, because we're gonna no doubt sort of try and rotate certain players and find a system that works. So I think that might be sort of a key factor. You look at Curtis Jones and can't suggest that you'd see him playing anywhere other than centrally, compared to someone like Foden, Saka, who can play a number of different positions. So don't get me wrong, like you say, he's a quality player, but maybe missing that sort of slight sort of edge that puts other players ahead of him.
This, we've gone off on a bit of a tangent, to be honest, but we get back on topic. We'll do our predictions for tonight's games and tomorrow night's games in the Champions League. So the first one, I think the big one this week is Atletico and Chelsea. Atletico have lost 2 straight, I think, in La Liga now. They lost to Levante at the weekend, 2-0. I had them down as Champions League winners this year, which was a bit of a bit of an outlier pick, but I mean, their form recently is dipped a little bit. What do you two make of that tie, and how do you see it going? How do you see the first leg going anyway? It's at the Wanda Volcano, I think. Yeah.
I'm gonna go draw. I think obviously Chelsea are on decent enough form. I think a lot of it will be dependent on Tuchel's team selection. I think he's still kind of trying to establish his sort of key setup. Whether or not, do you see the incident with Hudson-Odoi?
Yeah.
I was sort of quite surprised at that, actually, because I've sort of rate Hudson-Odoi. I think he's quite a talented player, and I think he's quite good. But for him to be subbed twice and then criticised after the game, I think was sort of quite a bold move. And I would have liked to have seen him get more game time for Chelsea. But other than that, I think sort of they're still trying to find sort of their main starting setup. So I'm gonna go for a draw on that one, based on Atletico form and Chelsea's sort of run of decent results.
I think Chelsea could actually help as well, because we mentioned with Kabak about playing back in Germany and kind of being used to that. I think there's a lot of players that, and obviously Werner and Havertz haven't played in Spain. I don't know if they played against Atletico, but I think European football just suits certain players, like we mentioned with the Prem. I think, like, I know it's the Europa League, so it's generally a bit easier, but Pepe always looks brilliant in the Europa League and then can't quite translate it. So I think players like Werner could come good in this competition. Like, this could be where he thrives. I'm not sure how he did in the group stage, but I think he did better than he's done in the Prem. And also, I think Chelsea they've got winners in there, like Azpilicueta. I'm not sure if he's actually won him yet, but Mason Mount definitely has that attitude where he just like gets it done. I mean, they got Thiago Silva, so I think Chelsea could be a dangerous team in this competition. They could be, like, even when they won it in 2012, they didn't really no one saw that coming. No one saw them as on paper the best team. So I think Chelsea could be a threat. And I think I'm leaning towards maybe a draw. I think I'm going to go Atletico will win, but I think it's going to be by one. I think I'm going to go Atletico 2-1. I think Chelsea are going to get an away goal, play pretty well, but Atletico will get it done in this leg. But I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea go through overall.
I think I'm in a similar boat to you. I think if you'd asked me last week, I would have said comfortably Atletico would win. But obviously, Chelsea have had that new manager boost. and Atletico have had a little dip in form. Yeah, I'm similar to both of you in that I don't see it being a runaway thing for either team. I think either it's going to be a 2-1 victory to Atletico or a 1-1 draw, and I'm going to go with the draw. I think it'll be 1-1.
Fair.
What's the other game tonight? Bayern Lazio.
Lazio at home.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really know enough about them, but I know that Bayern haven't been quite on it this season. I think they've lost quite a few in the last couple of weeks as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Lazio are like 6th at the moment. I think. So they're doing all right, but I mean, we spoke earlier about the likes of people like Lewandowski. Just the experience that they have in that competition. Whether or not they're playing well at the moment, I think a lot of those players won't be phased by that. So I think we'll probably see a comfortable away win.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3-1 to Bayern. I think it'll be pretty comfortable. I think Lazio will get a goal, but Bayern's just too good.
Yes, I think I'm just going to go Bayern win, probably like 2-0. I'm not really sure. I just don't know about it, but I think Bayern will get it done.
Yeah.
I think Immobile will get a goal, but that'll be it.
Yeah.
That's all I see really for Lazio. And then tomorrow we've got Atalanta and Real, and this is an interesting one because Real have got a massive injury crisis at the moment. They got no one fit. Like Benzema's injured even, and he's always I swear that guy always plays for them in the Champions League. So I mean, I'm not sure how are Atalanta doing.
I don't think they're as good this year, but they're
just above Lazio at the moment.
Yeah, their attacking football is just incredible.
They've lost Gomez as well, but I mean,
yeah, that was a weird transfer. I didn't see that coming at all. That was such a surprise.
Yeah,
I think he fell out with the manager.
Yeah, I think Atlanta are going to take it because even with all this injury crisis, I just think Real Madrid. There's something about them. The last couple of years, I know there's a lot of issues with Zidane as manager. That's part of the reason that Odegaard was allowed to leave because of a bit of a falling out. And I just think even without Gomez, I know they're still doing decent in Serie A. And I think Ilicic is back and like fully firing again. So I'm going to go for I think annoyingly like Real Madrid always do, they're going to sneak through. So I think they're going to get an away goal, but I think Atlanta are going to win 2-1 at home then tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I think Madrid, I think they only just won on the weekend. I think they won 1-0. And so, like you said, they're not in the best of form, and with injuries and stuff like that, I think, I'm going to go Atalanta. I think they'll get a win as well. I'm going to go 2-0. I think
2-0 to Atalanta?
Yeah, I think so. I think just in terms of that home fixture, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if Madrid take their home fixture. But yeah, I think I like Atalanta, and I think I like the way that they play attacking football. So
I guess Rini's an excellent coach. He's very underrated.
I think as well, a lot of what my thought process is you look at the previous games that we've seen. We're seeing a lot of sort of unexpected and sort of uncertain results here. So I think in another season of Madrid, we'll be looking at that and thinking, yeah, obviously Madrid are going to be going into that favourites. But I think at the moment we're going to see sort of upsets like we've already seen. And so yeah, I'm going to go Atalanta on this one.
I'm very torn on this one. I'm not going to lie. I was initially going towards 1-1. Just like you've convinced me with Atalanta, to be honest.
Don't listen to me; they might get battered.
I just think they're missing defenders, and Madrid, it's always their defensive issues that let them down. They're missing Militao and Ramos, and Varane by himself at Real notoriously struggles. Yeah. So I'm going to go the same as you. I'm going to say an Atalanta win. I'll go 2-1.
Nice one.
Guaranteed. Now that we've said it, nothing can go wrong. Atalanta.
Ramos will just suddenly return from injury, and they'll be fine.
Yeah. If we move on to the last one, then so Gladbach at home against City. I think a lot of people will be inclined to say City will win. I think I am, but I think Gladbach are a big threat. They've played Man City a lot in the Champions League recently, and they had a decent group stage. Have you seen their managers going to Dortmund at the end of the season? I think there's been quite a bit of fallout from that and a bit of like beef between the two. So I think if that hadn't been announced and it was kind of everyone going in the same direction fully at Gladbach and everything was happy, I think they could do something here. But I think Man City are just going to be ruthless, and I think they're going to win 2-0.
Yeah, I think they're just sort of, especially at the moment now, it's looking like De Bruyne's back. Like you said, we got people like Foden and Gundogan firing. Can't see anything else here other than a comfortable City win.
If you'd asked me 3 months ago when the group stage ended, I really thought Gladbach were a threat to see.
Yeah.
But they've gone off a little bit. They're 8th in the Bundesliga at the moment. They haven't won in their last 4 in the league. I'm not sure why that is really. Like their front line is quite good and they're very, very physical, which might help in their cause because obviously City are a physical team, but the way you beat technically good teams is by being a bit physical with them. It's a tough one, really. I'm like this with every pick now. I'm gonna go 2-1 to City, and we'll leave it there. I won't think about it anymore.
Should we wrap up there? Because I feel like we can just the Europa League. I feel like most of them are pretty set, and we can just talk about when they're done next week.
We'll leave it there for now. Thank you for Harrison for coming on. He's been an excellent guest, as we expected. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify. Make sure to follow our Twitter page. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. All that malarkey. And we'll see you next week.